Okay, so here we are now. We've got a 2-needle pine with short needles. Okay, lodgepole pine. Our host is lodgepole, and our pathogen is occurring in these clumps here. And there's some needles stuck in there, not part of the organism. So we see the pathogen coming out of the stem, much like our stops earlier today. And what do we have? Archaeothobium, right? So you should recognize this as a dwarf mistletoe. Now, dwarf mistletoes, as we said earlier, are species specific in their host. So if we have lodgepole pine, then this must be Archaeothobium specific to lodgepole pine. And that is true. And I'm going to teach you the way that I tell the two mistletoes apart as far as the scientific names, right? We remember the genus Archaeothobium. The other species, host species, have a mistletoe whose scientific name lends itself to the host in some way. So for instance, earlier today we saw Archaeothobium abiatinum in the genus Abies, Archaeothobium laricis in the genus, hosting in the genus Larix, the larches, and then Archaeothobium pseudotsugatta, which would host in Pseudotsuga, Douglas fir, okay? Then you have two Archaeothobiums whose scientific names don't really relate to the host. We have Archaeothobium americanum, okay? And then Archaeothobium campylopodum. Campylopodum is found in ponderosa pine. Archaeothobium is found in lodgepole pine. How are you going to remember those? First off, lodgepole, a distinctly North American species. So the all-American lodgepole, right? Archaeothobium americanum. And then I like to camp in the woods. And when I go camping in the woods, I like to camp under the ponderosas. So campylopodum is in ponderosa pine, Archaeothobium americanum in lodgepole pine. And remember back to our discussion about parasitic plants. What's the major pathology? First off, brooming is not real common with Archaeothobium americanum. It's very common with Archaeothobium campylopodum and Pseudotsugatta rather. They all have some degree of brooming. In lodgepole, it's slight. But the other main effect on the host is reduction in growth. So these lodgepole are going to grow more slowly because of the presence of the parasitic plant than they would otherwise grow had they not been infected. So one of the things we found here in our exploration of Archaeothobium americanum is this peeled twig. And you can see how cleanly this twig has been peeled. And you can also see that it is swollen somewhat in the middle. So what this twig represents is a point of infection of mistletoe that was cut, clipped loose and peeled by a squirrel. And it turns out that squirrels, both Douglas squirrels, western gray squirrels, golden mantle ground squirrels, and chipmunks, all will feed on the swollen tissue where mistletoes attach. And it's likely because in response to the mistletoe, the tree is moving carbohydrates to that area, which is what causes the swelling. And those extra carbohydrates there make this a bit of a nutritious meal for squirrels.